Nathaniel Clifton. I always know you was born with a higher purpose.
Joe Lapchick.
Matt Clifton. Some call me Sweetwater.
I coach a team called the New York Knickerbockers.
Ain't no Negroes playing your league.
It's not gonna be like that forever.
The NBA champs got their asses kicked by an all-Negro team.
It's like a circus, though. It's Ringling Brothers.
Sweetwater knows this game better than anyone. I will fight for this. I want to fight with you.
Sweetwater, that was your last game wearing a Trotter uniform. Your next game will be in a Knick jersey.
You know you can't play him.
The guy is
The future of the NBA.
Change is happening, but I don't know that my city can take it.
This ain't about the color of my skin.
You need to move away from my lily white pumps.
It's about being true to the game of basketball. It's unnecessary to have all this razzle-dazzle on our courts, and that's what the Negro players will do.
But every time we step on this court, it means something.
You ready to change the game?
Oh, I was born ready.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, today we are joined here by the ridiculously talented actor and legend at this point, because he's been in everything, Cary Elwes. Cary, what's going on, man?
Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh no, it's honestly our pleasure. And I mean, you've been in everything. You've been in some of my favorite movies of all time. But today we're talking about your role in Sweetwater, which is a great sports drama coming out April 14th. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It's based on the true story of the first African American to play in professional basketball, Nat Sweetwater Clifton, who crossed the color barrier and changed the game as we know it. And it's ironic that very few people know about this guy. And so we hope to change that with this movie.
I think you did, because and I really wanted to talk about your role, because I was talking to Martin earlier today, and he said your role was one of the hardest because there's not a lot of information about
Right.
Was it Nathan Irish?
Ned.
Ned
So
Irish?
short for Edward. Yeah.
Yeah, not a lot of information about him. So how did you go
Well,
about crafting?
Well, I was lucky. There were, he had a lot of fans and detractors, and because he was kind of a larger than life figure. He was a sports writer and a promoter, and ended up, being the president of Madison Square Garden and the owner of the Knicks. The guy was had lots of eulogies at his when he passed, and so there were a lot of people who knew him and spoke about him. So I kind of drew on a lot of that. And found out that he was a guy who kind of had a tough exterior, but he was a big softy at heart. And because he was a contemporary of Damon Runyon's, I kind of wanted to bring that Runyon-esque flavor to him, because I felt that was important. And, I realized that from what I could gather, that the guy was very much the color that really interested Ned more than barriers of professional sports was the color of green. Yeah. He was interested in making money. And at first, his reaction to Sweetwater was, well, how's he going to help me financially, And it wasn't until he met him and watched him play, he realized that this guy was very serious about the game and could potentially change it forever. And I think Ned realized then that he had to get behind him and otherwise be left in the dust. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. I think that your role is so pivotal, because it's the bridge between Jeremy Piven's character and Sweetwater. You're kind of tussle between the two of them. You see the humanity of Sweetwater, but you also see, like, this coach really wants to get this done, and I have to do everything I can for him. And I loved
Right.
how you drew on that, and and that's something you've done throughout your career is you've sort of encapsulated characters in these great roles, but so effortlessly. How do you do that?
Thank you. I'm fortunate in that if you're lucky enough to work with great filmmakers and surrounded by great talent, the job is made that much easier for you. And so I've been very fortunate in my career to be surrounded by talented people. And I think that when you are surrounded by talented people, you rise to the occasion, you know. Um,
I
that's
think
really,
I
yeah.
love that I'm here because you're in two of my favorite comedies and my favorite comedy of all time, which is Liar
Okay.
Liar.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you.
And you are the straight man to the absolutely bonkersness that is 1997 Jim Carrey. And so
Yeah.
that is a great example of you playing a role of the good guy. And you always play the good guy, usually. But here you're sort of in the gray
Yeah.
area. And I talked to Martin about that. Can you discuss playing the gray area?
Gray areas are much more interesting
Huh.
because not that, to me that there, anybody who's just good, bad, there's no such thing. Yeah. We all live in the gray. And the gray is interesting matter to me. As an actor, certainly it's far more appealing because we're complex creatures. We don't always make the right decisions in life. Sometimes it takes us a while to find ourselves feeding at the trough and making the right decisions. And I like the idea that Martine crafted a script where this character was not just gung ho from the word go, that he had conflicts and problems and operated. All these guys were operating out of fear. That's what the race barrier is. Let's face it, it's operating out of fear. People are, new is change is scary for people. And so Ned Irish was first interested in how much money. I think the color that really interested Ned was green. Less people of color. I think that the money was really a prime motivator for Ned. But once he
I think you're
met
right.
Sweetwater, oh, thank you. Once he met Sweetwater, watched him play, he realized there was more to this guy, and that this guy really had the potential to change the game. And so
I,
I think Irish realized that either he could be a part of history or not, you know.
I think that you're right about that fear. There's a line that I think sort of encapsulates that. He said, "When there's a Negro man on the court, then there's a white man on the bench." And I think that's the sort of fear that you're talking about, is that they were afraid of losing their spot. But I love that you said your character saw the only color that was important, which was the green, and that's true.
Well, it's true of a lot of the industry today, the
Yeah,
sports industry today. Let's face it, we're still dealing with issues in collegiate basketball where money is an issue and how much the players are really getting in endorsements and all that stuff. So it's a complicated thing. Uh, you know, uh, um, as you know, race is the idea of racism is based on fear. Yeah, fear of the unknown, fear of what we don't understand. And it's only through education that we're going to be able to change people's minds. And we're fortunate in that we have a story here that is not only entertaining, but hopefully can educate at the same time. And to me, that's the beauty of our industry, if we get an opportunity to do that.
I think that you're totally right on that, and I do think it educates people about a player in NBA history that I think was lost to time, and it's unfortunate that he was, because he changed so much of the game. When you look, again, there's a
Changed
line
it
in the movie.
forever.
Again, there's a line in the
Changed
movie
it
at the
forever.
end that says that. He says, "When
Yeah,
you watch an NBA game now, you're watching Sweetwater's game."
you are. I mean, I had the privilege of meeting Mr. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Kareem told me that he wouldn't exist today without Sweet. Neither would Magic Johnson or Michael Jordan. None of these people would exist without Sweetwater. And so they all owe them their careers to this man. And yet there's not a single statue or plaque to this guy anywhere in this country, you know.
And there probably should be right outside the garden,
There were,
honestly.
thank God, Martine was instrumental in getting him in the Hall of Fame. But without Martine pushing that, he wouldn't be there. It's crazy.
I think that's insane, honestly. So speaking of careers, I always like to ask all my guests because and we haven't had one as distinguished as you on here in a while.
Thank
Somebody
you.
who's been in a bunch of stuff. Who are some people you look to as inspirations throughout your career?
Richard Dreyfuss. And
He's in
so
this movie.
when I heard he was, yeah, well, when I heard he was on board, I was like, you know, I couldn't believe my luck. You know, I said, you guys don't have to pay me to go show up to work with Richard. And he was just as delightful and brilliant as I thought he would be. And because he was a big influence on me growing up, big, yeah.
He seems like a gentleman, honestly. Seems like a gentleman's gentleman.
Terrific. He's a terrific guy. Had a great, wonderful talent, as you know.
I mean, yes, I've seen. I mean, he's in everything, and he's amazing in everything. Much like yourself, you're great in everything. So
Thank
I'm
you.
going to ask you a really complicated and difficult question. I didn't get to ask Martine this earlier because we ran out of time, but we have a little time left. So I'm going to ask you: what are 2 movies, if you had a choice, that you could only watch for the rest of your life? What 2 would you pick, and why? And by the way, you're in one movie that's a lot of people select for theirs.
Thank you. Well, I would have to pick one dramatic movie and one comedy, because I think you gotta have comedy to survive. And for me, Monty Python and the Holy Grail is pretty much up there as comedy. And I would say for drama, my personal favorite is Papillon. It's a Franklin Schaffner movie with Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman. It's really a favorite of mine.
I've seen it. They actually remade it too, and it's not. The remake is nowhere near as good.
Well, you shouldn't touch, and if it's perfect, why
mess with it, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier that you're in a movie that a lot of people have picked as one of their island movies. That's what I call it. It's the island movie
Yeah.
question, and it's The Princess Bride. A lot of people pick that movie because to them it means something interesting, and so the fact that we have our very own Wesley in front of us here, it means a lot to my audience and to the people who watch movies in general. I love your selections because Papillon is such an underrated film, especially in that time. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for being in this movie and telling this story. I wanted to leave you with this. The film comes out April 14th. Why should people check out your new movie, Sweetwater?
I think they'll be pleasantly surprised by the fact that it's an entertaining film, because most people think that if you have a message that it can't be. And yet I think that this film has a great heart to it, because you end up really rooting for this wonderful character played beautifully by Everett Osborne, who we were lucky to get play Sweetwater, who not only is a wonderful actor, but an extraordinary athlete. And so to have that combination, really, there would be no movie without it. And the fact that we get to entertain and educate at the same time, this is a rare and beautiful thing in our industry when it happens. And so, you know, hopefully kids will go and they'll have a good time, and hopefully they'll learn a thing or two along the way.
I think that that is the perfect answer to wrap this up because you're right. The film is entertaining. You're great in it. The film itself is great, and Everett is amazing as Sweetwater. He's not getting enough praise for that role. There's 2 basketball movies coming out this month, and I think I've already seen the better one. Guys, make sure you check out Sweetwater, opening April 14th in the theater near you. And everybody, thank Cary Elwes for this amazing career that he's had and he's going to keep having until he gets called to our greater means. Right, Cary?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You're very kind.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. It's been my absolute pleasure.